I'm Mary Claire Bristois. I'm the founding executive director of the Technology and Applied Composition program at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. Our program is a course of study in film music, music for video games, sound design, and audio for a variety of interactive mediums and platforms. Today, I'm here in Zoom with my students, and we are very excited to welcome a Masterclass lecture with Jonathan Snipes. Jonathan Snipes is a composer and sound designer for film and theater living in Los Angeles. He occasionally teaches sound design in the theater department at UCLA and is a member of the rap group Clipping. Jonathan, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So your first student of the day is Omar. Omar, are you there?
Yeah, hi guys. What's going on?
Hi, Omar. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Cool. Yeah, you too, man.
So, I have a little folder of stuff here.
So in that folder is 2 tracks off top, track 1 and 9, which are the bookends from a record that I just finished.
Okay, cool.
Of my own music.
Oh, amazing.
It's like a duo project with me and my friend Nicole. And then beneath that is a mix that I've already remixed and don't feel super strongly about, that Daniel mix.
Okay.
But it still could be good to listen to. Easy Life World is a master that I did for someone. It's like a house track.
Okay.
And then Take Me With You is like kind of just like here's a mix like that I just printed the other day.
Okay.
And then beneath that is like a video of like creative stuff, less like technical mix work. So,
well, what's the most interesting to talk about? Do you think what are you the most interested to have my feedback on?
Probably the first 2 in the docket, the
Okay.
track Turnaround or My Whole Life.
Cool. And these are done.
These are mastered. These are done.
These are done. So what kind of feedback is helpful at this point?
Maybe like if they're like over stylized, or if just kind of thoughts on like the mix as a whole, or
it's just like general listener.
Yeah, just general listener things.
This is what I'm responding to. Okay, sure. Well, let's listen to the first one first. I guess I'll just.
Yeah, totally. We can talk about it.
Everywhere.
Some kids are orchids. Some, they're just fine. Growing up in a greenhouse. Closed off inside all the time. Feeling like an archetype. No, I'm sorry, I can't go out tonight. Even though I'm so beside myself, I feel my life turn around. I feel my life turn around. All good things go away. Always good things go away. Always. Get sick, get sad, stay true, love you, stay sick or stay sad, get true. Is it things go away always.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. Yeah.
Thank you.
The mix is really good. It sounds really good. It's really well balanced. I think the master sounds good. Like all the parts feel like they're in the same sort of sonic world in a really.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear, man. This was pretty, like, this was like a long process for me. The entire record was recorded on 2-inch tape and mixed to 1/2-inch tape, and it hit like Lavery converters like at the very end of the chain and got limited by the mastering engineer. But the whole thing was like kind of like there's no such thing as a remix. Like every remix is just another mix, and just kind of just only having one mix of each song on the reel, only having like one version of every song, and like, you know, 24 tracks, and like bussing, if there was ever more than 24 tracks, like bussing tracks down, and kind of just, yeah, I don't know. It feels good to have like made a record in that way.
Yeah.
That I feel like holds up, like maybe like outside of like analog land or something, you know, like coming off of like a laptop, it still feels like real music or something.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's cool. I've never worked that way. Like I've never worked just on tape like that.
Totally.
I'll use tape as like a tool in little sort of bits and spurts here and there, you know, but
yeah.
But it's awesome. I mean, it sounds really good. It's like really warm and really full and really beautiful. I love the sound of it.
Cool, man. I see Mary Claire laughing at me or laughing at something.
Yeah. Silently.
Not laughing at you, enjoying myself. I'm proud of you.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like situations like this with like, I mean, I think it's great. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. I
don't know what to exactly say, but we could like, I could hit play on it again with just stop when I think of something, and we could talk.
If you want, I don't know. I kind of just, one thing that I thought of off the top was it's like the entire record is like LCR panning. So like, I'm pretty sure it's like 95% of the time something is panned, it's hard panned. There's very few like soft pan decisions.
I was noticing that like it's definitely everything's very wide, but I loved that about it. I love the stereo-ness of it. And
cool. Okay. That's
there's
funny.
Something weird about like old records when like stereo first showed up. Like you listen to Sgt. Pepper and all the drums are hard.
Yeah, right.
Something, you know, there's something like weird and off-putting about that. And this feels like it's like taking what's cool from that idea and not doing something.
Awesome. Yeah, I felt a little. It's I don't know. It feels like it defines, at least like having like this record for me, like is kind of defined by like hard panned like main vocals, or like just like very like noticeable panning things, which sometimes I know can get people like into trouble. But I feel like the way it like mono sums and the way it sounds like on like in cars, it's still like everything is like audible and present, you know.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, obviously I didn't like mono check it or anything, but
no, yeah, totally. I don't know. I was just asking for thoughts on like the overall translation, I guess, or like the feeling. But
no, it sounds great. It sounds very professional, really well balanced. Yeah.
Cool, man. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm down to listen to the next track, and then maybe we can play something that's a little bit more like we can talk about like detailed things. I don't know.
Yeah. Omar, may I make a suggestion?
Wait, anyone else who wants to talk should chime in too.
I know when you make something, Omar, there's like really specific things that you're going for, and that you're like, you have very specific ideas of what you're trying to accomplish aesthetically and technically. And I think it might be helpful if you laid that out for Jonathan before he listens. So it gives him some idea of what he should be listening for.
Okay. I'm always maybe hesitant to preface stuff too much, but that sounds helpful.
I would almost say like let's do that after the first listen.
That's kind of what I was thinking, maybe.
Yeah.
So you can just think whatever you're gonna think.
Because I really I think listener impression is actually much more valuable than artist intent.
Yeah, I'm kind of with that. That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I find myself like that's the hardest lesson for me to learn in like when I'm turning in like a film score cue or like turning in things to people is I always
Just
want
not
to practice things and be like, hey, this is what I'm going for, this is what I'm trying to do, this isn't working yet, but this is going to work, and I usually end up writing that email and then deleting it and then saying like, here's the cues and send it off, you know, and then
I've done that. I've done that.
because they're not going to hear the same things I'm going to hear, and they're going to hear something totally different. And that first impression is like really, really valuable to me. But in a learning environment, obviously, it's also really helpful to know like, hey, this was my intention. And it's like, okay, now that I know that intention, I can like sort of collate that with my first response, and you know.
I think the shortest, least invasive intention is that like this is a record made by like two people who are trying to like balance each other's songwriting and production. It's like there's like 9 tracks. Half the tracks are written by one person, the other tracks are written by the other person, and like within all the tracks they're also like co-writing and mixing everything together. And it was also like a deliberate decision to do it like large format analog to just like work within that world, but also not sound like David or like Luddites, you know.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Should we listen to that other track from that record, or should we listen to a different thing?
Let's listen to that other one because it's really short.
Cool.
Don't really know why you'd expect me to stay, 'cause you can't keep changing your mind every day. Don't really know why you'd expect me to run, 'cause I can't let us go till you said that we're done. Are you really that surprised? Well, I guess I've been keeping it inside. Preferred memories disguise my whole life. You always say that I'm not like anyone else when you don't even know what you're talking about. Maybe with anyone that prevents you from dealing with the wounds that you scratch at every time you start healing. Are you really that surprised? Well, I guess I've been keeping it inside. Preferred memories disguised my whole life.
That's also awesome. This
Thanks. With this one, it was very, I think we were really focused on like highly like deconstructing like an idea, but also in the same way like I tend to not be like into maximalism kind of like in most ways, but I guess this was kind of us like blowing up like a short kind of little song and just trying to, but also at the same way it feels like like a remix of like a song
Hmm.
to me. I don't know. I feel like something that I've been thinking about a lot is just like recording, you know, on the way in, just like sounds just like already like kind of like exactly how you want them, or just the process of like remixing a song like as you're tracking it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah. To like you design the sound on the way into the tape or into the computer as opposed to like tweaking it after the fact. Like
yeah, and
tracking through like all of your effects and your processors, like printing it. Yeah, I'm into
yeah,
that.
and even like letting like being like I kind of want like this type of thing, or like I want something that's gonna come in and make everything feel like foggy, like but I don't exactly know what that is, but like what I have is gonna like it's kind of like letting instruments like write their own parts. You know what I mean? Like to me, there's like 5 instruments on this, and it's like the main vocal, drum machine, acoustic guitar, a keyboard, and then like side chained like affected like vocals.
Right, right.
And it's like most of the sounds are like just like really altered versions of like normal instruments.
Mhm.
I don't know. I I I don't know. I just like the like deconstructed nature of this one, and I was just wondering like how that came across.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
definitely. It's like I mean, I like tracks like this that have like a real like sort of grid production element, but still feel kind of live and sort of sloppy and organic, sort of over the top of that, you know,
Mhm.
without feeling so disparate. Like you've done a really good job, I think, of making the drum machine and the other less electronic elements like sort of sit together in the same world and complement each other. Like they're all doing what they do best, as opposed to like fighting to be in each other's territory, which can happen all the time, right?
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
a really live vocal, and you just like cut and tune and smash it so that it like hits exactly the right notes, can sometimes take all the fun out of it, but then
Yeah.
like yeah, you know what I mean. And this definitely feels very like sort of live and natural. I would say like this one feels compared to the other track, I feel like this one is gets when everything comes in, it gets a little too crunched for me. Like this one feels a little too like I feel like I hear the compressors working too hard in a way that feels like less intentional and musical and more like trying to get the record loud, you know? Like
We're like mastering
yeah, maybe it might
compressors.
be mastering, or it might be like a product of some of the like side chaining on the, you know.
Yeah.
I like in these two loud sections. I just miss the like depth and the clarity of the verse sections. Like there's something I love about the way that kick drum kind of fights the vocal in when there's less going on, but then when it
Yeah.
gets loud, it's like it has nowhere to go. Somehow.
It's so confusing because I'm listening to it just getting like squashed by Zoom
I
right
know,
now.
I know.
But part of me feels like that could be like because of how hot I decided to like hit the tape deck like when we were bouncing the mix.
It could be.
But I understand that. Yeah.
I definitely don't like. I don't think you're like not communicating the song or something. Like I don't like. Like I, it's fine. And that is like we talked about this a lot yesterday. Actually, how much of an aesthetic that sound is becoming. You know, of
Like smashed stuff.
smashing things. That it's like now that the loudness wars are sort of over, right? Like that
A little bit.
that all of these like streaming services are normalizing everything. You know.
Yeah.
You don't have to master as loud. It turns out that actually like people do want their records to sound that way.
Yeah, exactly. This was something that I was talking about with some people at the studio that I made this at.
And I feel like even people who say like who complain about records being too compressed and they want to hear them more dynamic, they don't actually mean it. Like they do actually want to hear their records pretty smashed.
I agree, man, because I've talked to I've talked to a lot of people about this lately. A lot of my friends have kind of just wrapped records around the same time.
Yeah.
And we're all talking about like, oh, it's like this on like loudness penalty, but if I want it to like sound like this, like maybe we should kind of like squash it a little bit more. And some of my friends just got like vinyl masters done, and so this was just something that was like floating around my circle. And I wanted to ask you, like, having 2 feet in like soundtrack film world, but also like working with clipping and being in like rap slash like, more like popular, just like people who like listen to music just to listen to it, like how you think about like loudness. And
Well, I mean, I like that it is becoming an aesthetic, right? That like that it's not just that there's not like a right or wrong way to do it. That it's suddenly like it's no longer like making your record loud is now like an aesthetic choice of what you want it to sound like. It's no longer like a competitive choice to get your track to pop out on the radio, right?
exactly.
Because everything does kind of sound the same loudness on Spotify, just like some things feel more crunched and some things feel more dynamic. I happen to like things that feel more dynamic, and I think I really mean that. I don't think I'm like just using that as a buzzword, and I think clipping records are quieter than most records, and they're much more dynamic than a lot of records that come out. We smash clipping records a little bit more than I'm even comfortable with, just because they are rap records, and we're operating inside like a genre and in a continuum, and we have to be aware of it. But we always, like a first pass of mastering, we almost always ask the engineer to turn it down, to be like, hey, I don't actually think we need to go that loud,
because it just doesn't like really matter that much.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah, because it doesn't matter as much as it used to, I think. And because we are making, I mean, I think it's also clear in the mixes that we turn in. Like, we turn in really dynamic mixes with a ton of low frequency information and a ton of really high frequency information. And if you smash them too much, they just distort sooner than I think a lot of other mixes do.
Interesting.
Or you have to cut all the low end out, and I don't know. I really like the way our records sound, and I really like that we're being like real sticklers about that. We're really sticking to our guns, and we're making like, quieter records that are more dynamic, and I think they sound better than a lot of things that are totally smashed. It's not like I dislike music that I hear that's totally smashed. I like a lot of that stuff. I think it is like me belying my age, right? Like, I don't think I'm right. I just think I grew up listening to dynamic records, and I developed a taste for it, and I'm, becoming an old man now who's like angry about, the kids making all the records too loud. And I get that. I totally understand that. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm empirically right about that. It's just my taste,
Totally.
But I really do like that it is becoming an aesthetic and it's becoming taste. I mean, in the same way that all like technology seems to go through these, it's like the new thing is the right way to do something for a little while, and then it falls out of fashion because some new thing, like everybody was trying to get rid of tape hiss for forever, like, oh wait, like the tape is so hissy. Oh, now we have digital recording, we don't have any hiss anymore. And then people wanted to add the hiss back, and now hiss has just become an aesthetic, And vinyl crackle is the same way. It's like we're adding vinyl crackle into back into records. I bought a bunch of records on eBay. I found a couple of copies of this record called the Nothing Record. It was a novelty record from the 70s.
Yeah.
It's just 2 30-minute sides of silence. Just to record them in to add vinyl crackle to tracks.
That's the best possible scenario of like, I want vinyl crackle though.
Yeah, right.
But that's pretty cool. You definitely did it.
We were always looking for like in clipping even we're taking like locked grooves and little bits of vinyl crackle from between tracks. We were always just like, why didn't somebody just cut a silent side of a record? And I found this one called the Nothing Record. There are others too. I There's a
I gotta
recent
get
one.
a
There's a
copy.
really recent one actually. I for years I had this like Neil Hamburger 7-inch that that was like a commemorative when Princess Diana died, like a commemorative, like it was one side was comedy about Princess Diana, and the other side was a moment of silence for Princess Diana.
Oh
It
my
was just
god,
it was just silence, kind of, but
that's so funny.
if you listen to
That
it really
makes me
loud, you can actually tell it's room tone. But
wow.
I have sampled that, but you can like hear him like walking around really faintly in the background on it. Thanks.
That makes me think about a record I'm sure you've heard called Luke Finding Jazz Records
Oh, I love that record.
by
Yeah,
Jan Jelinek.
yeah.
Yeah, that record is like top 10 or something
Oh,
for
it's so
me.
good. Yeah, it's so amazing. Well,
Yeah,
but I mean, it makes me think like I was talking with Moya about this yesterday, right? Listening to her records, like, um, which I feel like we all, and especially now that we're all sitting in our own homes listening to Zoom all day, we're gonna have to start embracing the digital artifacts that come with like streaming music, right? Like the artifacts that show up in YouTube and in Zoom streams and Twitch streams and like live streaming audio over the internet, that like watery MP3 FFT
yeah.
garbage, like that's what we have now. Like that's the new tape hiss.
I hear that in like JPEG Mafia and
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
and you know, and like all sorts of that world. It feels like it's already like been embraced in a way.
Well, a lot, you know, and it used to be the cranky old man in me, right? That like there was like, oh, these damn kids recording like recording to poor quality MP3s and passing them back and forth and just dropping them in those sessions, and you just get this like kind of like overly like compressed like
Skype
garbage
effect.
watery sound in it, and like nobody
Yeah.
notices, and these fucking kids don't know what they're doing. But now I'm like, I mean, that's just the world. That's just what things sound like. Let's find what makes it. Well, let's find what's beautiful about that and lean into it.
Mhm.
And it's still all about intentionality. Like I don't like degradation or like sound sound quality issues that are unintentional, right?
Of course.
I like to know that I'm doing something very particularly, but I'm also into like, it's like, what are the sounds that YouTube has a lot of trouble reproducing? Like what are the most harmonically rich sounds that we can generate that YouTube is just going to destroy, and let's make music entirely out of those sounds and see what
Wait,
happens.
what kind of like subby stuff and like really high stuff?
I
Or-
think like really inharmonic stuff, right, is the worst for MP3s.
Oh,
Like white noise and oceans and hisses and like all of that stuff is really really hard for like MP3 compression to deal with.
so it just starts like lopping it off.
Because it only has so many bits per like second or whatever per moment to which to represent the spectrum. And if you have like a pure like
Full
in
spectrum.
thing, right, then you can just cut out all the information around those harmonics.
Wow.
Like sine waves are really easy for MP3s, right? And then full spectrum noise is really really hard. It's the same thing in like video compression, right? It's like the more things are moving, the harder it is to compress it. It's like snowstorms.
Of course.
Snowstorms.
That makes sense.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. It's like records that are. I forget who it was that made a record that was stored in a sandpaper sleeve. That was designed to like
Wow.
get ruined, and so to accumulate more and more and more noise, and every copy sounded different, and it's like projects like that I always really like. It's just like, let's embrace the medium for its imperfections and make those beautiful, and find a way to make those beautiful.
Yeah. Maybe like similarly along that line in a way, like just since the song
Yeah.
is pulled up, something with this song was like finding like ways to execute ideas that you like normally wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe a hard way to put it, but like that sidechain vocal sound,
Yeah.
that's like one of my favorite things like on the record, and it's this like technique that I've like picked up from some engineers at a Tiny Telephone, the studio that I work at, where if you're like making a record like primarily on tape, and you have like your main like multi-track like 2-inch tape which has like 24 tracks on it, and you like want to put like a choir with like 8 channels on it or something, what people can do is you maybe like you make like a rough mix of your like multi-track, and then you can print that to a computer or to like a 1/2-inch tape machine, and then wind forward on your main reel of tape to like a quiet blank section, and then print your stereo mix, like your reference mix, on 2 faders, and then you have 22 more faders to like add on top of that. And then what you do is you do like what's called a plus 22, and then you print the 22 tracks like with the reference track muted, and then you fly that to a tape machine, and then you wind back on your multi-track tape to like your original spot, and then you have 22 tracks like on basically like a one-shot sampler that all like you're trying to line up with your main recording. So then you actually like kind of like fly in the 22 tracks like all at the same time, like into your main mix, and just like arm 2 tracks of the tape machine to like record that. So it's kind of confusing, but like that sidechain sound is like Nicole singing like just the same like idea like 12 or like 14 times, just like all layered. And then we just like squished it, sidechained the whole thing, and then just like flew it in. Tried like, what if we press the machine on like 4E and or like 3E and just like trying to get it to line up.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was being ducked by the kick drum coming off of like the main deck. So it was always gonna like sound in time, but it's kind of like gliding like over the beat in this way. And it's just something that like we never could have had her sing. Like we never could have like gotten that sound without like embracing like using a tape machine as like a sampler, just like Jan Jelinek couldn't like get like a micro house out of like, you know, like that type of stuff has been really important to me lately.
And like techniques like that are so easy to do on a computer, but you'd never think of it because you don't have to, you know?
Yeah, like we could have just dragged everything over like however many samples and like sidechained it. But it's like in the execution, like you have just like a whole different sound.
Well, and now you'll know, like now that you've had to do it with tape on the next project, when you like say can't afford to go to tape, you know that that's a really useful thing to like try on inside the computer, you know?
Yeah.
So, like I mean, that's why like, that's a huge reason why like hardware and like modular synths are so valuable, is because the interface leads you to different decisions than you would make if you didn't have that interface in front of you. It changes the way then you work with other interfaces.
Yeah, definitely.
Hardware has absolutely changed the way that I work when I'm just entirely inside a computer, you know? And I think it's made that music sound better. Yeah, I love that. Is that also, I was going to ask about all these like scrubbing effects in this last section of the song. See if I can find one.
Like that. That's like since we're flying it in on like the 102, you can kind of just like poke at the tape or like put your hand over the tape while it's spinning, and it'll just drag, and then like to compensate it'll speed up. It's just like poking at a tape machine as it's being processed. That's so cool. It's just like become a sound.
That's really hard to do on a computer, you know?
Yeah, there's no way.
There's like you Maybe can not. Kind of fake it, but like, I don't know, like what, like bounce out your vocals, throw them in a DJ software, and then like nudge the pitch back and forth as you're like flying it back into.
Yeah.
Like you could do that, but who is doing that? I don't know, you know?
Yeah, and now to me it's become such a sound of like, oh, that's like the 102 like 1/2-inch machine, like it takes like that's the wind up time. It's always like a whole step at like however fast that is. It's just like become a sound to me.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, thinking about just like how to, when you're like working with the same palette or the same set of things a lot, and you're like, I'm not doing anything interesting, like I have to like break this norm, like I have to do something, you know, like people who like pick up a guitar and like always like play the same thing instinctively, or you open up like a session, maybe you have like a template or something, and like just trying to like, how do you think about just like making fresh ground or like breaking habitual things?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I also think like habits are really useful, right? They're what like enable you to work quickly.
Yeah.
I guess I just feel like every time I'm like, what's also nice about habits is and like things that you know are going to work is you can always go back to them.
Yeah.
So like, for example, like I feel like almost every piece of music I've ever made, like that has like a punchy bass sound, I've made it with this Oberheim stem that I
Uh-huh.
absolutely adore, and it is like I use it on everything. It's always my bass sound. Like I don't really make other sounds on it. Honestly, I just kind of make the same bass sound over and over and over and over and over again, and I do it like on almost every piece of music I make.
Hmm.
Um, when it needs a bass sound of that variety, right? And so I'll make rules and I'll be like, okay, not gonna do that this time. Like really, I want that bass sound, but I'm gonna try to make it someplace else. And I'll like spend, an hour like making it on other things or doing other things. And sometimes I'll find a great sound that I love, but I always know I can make a sound that will absolutely work and do exactly what I want it to on that thing if I need to. So like having those conventions and those habits I think is really important because it does give you the freedom to like experiment because
Yeah.
it's
So
safe, right? It's like safe to experiment and try something crazy because you know you can get it to work in this other way.
that's cool. Yeah, it's maybe like a little liberating in that way that you have
Yeah, I
something
think,
to fall back on.
and and sometimes it's like, no, do the thing that works because it works.
Totally. Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's a lot of like recipes in my process already that I just have like faith in, you know.
And I like a project to always like add one or two more things to my tool bag, Like
Yeah.
I don't have to reinvent my entire toolkit on every project. Like that's insane. Like you kind of do that when you're starting, right? When you're young. When I was young anyway, I would like get a new project and be like, okay, no old sounds, no old techniques. Everything is brand new. But you can't keep doing that forever because it takes a really long time to work that way. Um, and the more you do that, the bigger your own personal toolkit of ideas or sounds gets anyway, right? So like now I'm at a point where I can write a whole film score and make no new sounds for it and also be using no presets. It's all 100% sounds of mine, techniques of mine that are very much mine that I've made for a variety of other projects over the years. And I don't have to make anything new for a project to still feel like I'm not writing with presets, not using other people's stuff, like not using other people's ideas. I
Yeah.
still try to make sounds from scratch, but the days of like being like, okay, 100% of the sounds in this project need to be new. Those are over for me, like because I've built this giant library of things.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very pragmatic.
so I think that comes with time.
Definitely. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I do like. I mean, a lot of honestly, that's what like clipping gives me in my life too. Is like if I get a new piece of gear, or I'm playing with a piece of gear that I know very well, or like just have around or haven't used in a while, and I find like one particular weird little thing it can do that's very unique. That usually becomes a clipping song.
Cool.
They're like, oh, if you clock this delay wrong in this particular way, it does this weird little sound that I don't know what to do with other than make the like featured sound of a clipping beat or
That's
something,
cool.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and then a year later, if I'm working on a film score, I'm like, oh, that exact sound, that would be great. Then I have that in my toolkit, too.
Yeah. I think in a way, like I may be working in an opposite way, like coming from trying to like write songs and then just like take them out of like the normal, like this is a song mold. It's
Hmm.
like the formula of like writing the song, like hopefully it doesn't become too predictable, but it like stays within this framework of like songwriting and like,
Yeah.
kind of like the world that we live in with all that. And then it's trying to like make these things kind of have their own like worlds. Like each song has like its like sound palette and its thing. So trying to give like each song like a special, like unique
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I just come from like the other way around.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I spent years writing songs actually too, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't really write songs anymore in the same way, because I'm not writing words anymore, which I don't miss at all.
Could be hard.
Writing words is always the worst part of writing songs for me, and I hated it so much, and I am thrilled to not have to do it anymore. I mean, I never had to do it, um, but I, you know, and I do remember like when I started making computer music, you know, I was really into like Aphex Twin and like 90s Warp Records stuff, like Autechre, Aphex Twin,
Of
Music,
course.
Square Pusher, Luke Vibert, and like all of that, you know, like that British 90s, early 2000s stuff.
Yeah.
And it was all like very like glitchy and experimental, and so I was like, okay, I have to be very like serious and
IDM.
make weird sounds, make IDM, yeah. And then I remember I heard DMX Crew for the first time, who was on Aphex Twin's label Reflex, who was just like writing dumb pop songs, like dumb 80s throwback pop songs. And I was like, oh my God, you're allowed to do this? Like, and still be part of this like world of people? That's actually what I want to do. I just want to make like dumb pop tracks. And then I sort of made a rule for myself. I was like, I'm going to learn how to write a song and then I'll go back to making weird sounds. And then I made a bunch of records just writing dumb pop songs, without like really like doing a few like sort of sound designy things, but like not really pushing myself in that direction. And I feel like finally I've now come back around to saying like, okay, I kind of feel like I know how song structure works. Now I can just like make insane.
Disregard it.
Yeah, 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 disregard.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't, you know, I don't, and that is something that I like. I still struggle with too. Like if I have like a formal like song structure, like kind of trying to break that with sound design can be an effort, right?
Yeah, that's kind of maybe what I was saying earlier about like
Mm-hmm.
there's so at least like right now it feels like there's a crazy push of like kind of like this brand, not brand, but like this style of like hyper narrative, like confessional songwriting that
Yeah.
I'm like just in love with, and like historically have been into artists who have been doing it. And I love like the transparency of it, but I'm also trying to just keep it in this like, I don't know, just more like animated space where there's like, you know, like more than just like, I don't know, like one of the original rules that we put on this record was that there was going to be like there was only going to be like one or like hopefully like no songs where there's like a drum set, an electric guitar, and like a bass guitar playing like a band, like the two of us pretending to be a band at the same time. And like most of the record is I think there's like one song or two songs where there's like a drum set, bass guitar, and like a guitar playing at the same time, just trying to like shut that down in a way. I don't know why I'm back on this idea, but that was something that.
Well, I love rules and limitations like that too. Like I'm all about like making a set of rules for yourself and then following it for as long as you can and then breaking them at the last minute, you know?
That's exactly what this record has been. So
I mean, that's the clipping is like that too. Like it started from a very like clear set of rules. We were kind of like, well, what if rap songs existed that had these very like specific like structural rules? What would those sound like? Let's try to make one. And that's kind of we very quickly broke all our rules,
but it worked.
Yeah, and the rules were really helpful in defining like an aesthetic that we could then sort of internalize. Because really at the beginning it used to be like, okay, here's a set of rules. Well, let's make a song following those rules. Okay, we're done with that list of rules. Now let's listen to it and make a list of things we think it needs. Let's make all those things and then listen to it again. And then I remember we would get to the end of songs and be like, I guess it's done. Yeah. Did all the things. I can't think of anything else. I don't know if it's good because I've never heard anything that sounds like this, but like, but I think it's done.
That's a tricky ground to be in, I bet.
Yeah, it was really fun. I don't really know how to like recapture that, but it definitely like, because we had no, you know, we had no intent for or expectation of the of anyone ever really hearing the clipping project. And again, like the first handful of tracks we made, like usually our friends are very supportive, but like the first handful of tracks, we would play them for people and be like, people would like literally say like, I mean, good for you guys, but I don't know who this is for. Like, I don't know what this is. And we're like, yeah, we kind of don't know either. But it felt right somehow. Like it felt like an interesting direction to probe, you know?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. We're very lucky it worked out, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, maybe with the last like 9-ish minutes we have, do you want to check out that video at the bottom of that? This is, I'll preface with it's like a kind of like a fixed. It's like this is a record that I made with a friend.
Okay.
That was like, we made a bunch of like tape loops and cassette loops and like 4-track recordings, and then kind of like collaged everything together and then played like live over it, and then kind of like resampled ourselves. So it's a very like collaged sample based record, and this is put to a 16 millimeter film.
Cool.
And just kind of like almost asynchronously.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of just like a mostly just like a pairing that we
Yeah.
felt really good about. But the film was just kind of, it was like the person's first time ever shooting 16 millimeter, and they were doing a bunch of like in-camera editing, and like they shot a roll, put everything in a black bag, and like reloaded the roll and just like blew over the whole roll, and kind of just kept like what stuck and like cut it together. It's the film's like really inspired by this filmmaking process by this guy named Paul Clipson, but the actual like kind of, I don't know, I just was wondering if like how you thought about like putting like your guys' music to visuals. I know it's like a lot of the clipping stuff is pretty like cinematic in a way, and I know you also have like a lot of film work, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Like, I feel like um, a video for a song is like it's not our piece anymore, really.
Yeah.
And I don't ever like like it like the video the videos that made for our songs we really feel like are the work of those filmmakers, you know,
Totally.
and they don't and they exist both separately and in tandem with our music, you know, and so we're much less like picky and controlling over the music videos than we are about like the rest of the material, because it really doesn't feel like those come from us. Those are conversations
Hmm.
with artists that we admire, and even if we like don't even if we have other ideas or don't like if we like when we give notes on a music video, um people like those directors are free to ignore them, you know.
Yeah, because you like trust their
Yeah.
intent and everything.
And while I'm so much more interested in like seeing what this person's response is to our song than controlling the final output, you know, because I'm not
Totally.
a filmmaker. Like if we wanted to make a music video that said directed by clipping, then that would be different, you know.
Yeah.
But we don't want to do that because we're not filmmakers. So I guess I do make all of our lyric videos, and there's so many of those now that I can't really ignore the fact that those exist as like a filmmaking outfit. My wife and I make those, and those are a lot of fun, and those feel like a part of the clipping album. But again, like like I don't think the video changes the existence of the song.
Hmm.
Like it's a very different process than scoring a film.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Didn't mean to like
Yeah.
blur them
Yeah.
together, but
I loved about what we just watched too. Like I've said this a few times today. Like there are always like if you put a piece of music to any piece of film, there will be synchronicities that feel intentional.
hmm
Always, and your brain tends to see the things that happen together and ignore the things that don't.
hmm
You know, and I love that. I mean, you said that it was placed sort of asynchronously, but I kept seeing like, oh, this little light popped on when that note happened, and this cut happens,
Yeah.
and this phrase changed, and it felt so intentional, um,
Yeah.
in a really beautiful way. Like yeah. I love being reminded of that. It reminds you to not like that you don't actually have to work as hard as you think you have to when you're scoring a film.
That's really cool to hear.
Like that you can just kind of let it like my impulse in film music is to like Mickey Mouse everything, is to really
On the nose.
have tons
Yeah.
of changes and I make it too complicated, and like you don't have to do that. You can just kind of let the music exist against it, and if it's not working, it's probably a bigger picture problem than like, oh, that beat didn't exactly line up with that cut,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not. Like sometimes you're scoring something that does have to be meticulous, um, but recognizing when it's one or the other is helpful too.
Yeah. Well, it's do we call it? Does Mary Claire who has stepped out.
I don't know.
Here.
I don't know who's next or what's going on. I do what I'm told.
Charles is next. Omar, that was lovely. It's really nice to hear your work. I haven't really been keeping up with your work in the last year or so because you've been so busy working at Penny Telephone.
Dude, I haven't seen you in so long.
I know.
And now I never will.
You've arrived, Omar. You totally made it happen. You're done.
I'm done. Almost done.
Time to go. Time to go out into the world.
We're already in the world. But,
we're in the Zoom world.
We're in virtual world.
Yeah, we're in virtual world. But congratulations.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. You've always had your own thing that you wanted to do, and you totally set about doing it. And I'm very proud of you. Good job.
Thank you, Mary Claire.
Bye.
Cool. Bye. See you.
Nice to meet you, Omar.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. Big fan of everything and love the new record and everything, dude.
It's great work. It's incredible stuff.
Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Charles, are you there?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Hey, SM7.
Oh yeah, this is my friend's actually, not mine. She just brought it over while we were recording, but I thought I'd set it up for Zoom, be a little bit extra.
It's a good Zoom mic. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Cool. What am I? There's a folder from you. Here.
I think I just put 2 things in there, and then I have a couple more after that too, like just like Ableton sessions I have on my computer.
Okay, yeah, we can switch who's sharing whose screen and do that if you want. What do you want to listen to first?
Do the Mercedes one.
Any context? Or should I just go for it?
This is just like a house song that is I think almost done.
Okay.
I'm looking to add a little bit more to it possibly, but I just can't figure out what else it needs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. So it's in progress.
Yeah.
Cool. That's helpful. That's helpful to know. Well, I'm gonna just hit play on it and we'll go from there.
Cool.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, it's like the second half of it. I couldn't decide if it needed something else in terms of like some housey vocals or something like that. If I could get one of my friends to sing like some house vocals on the second part of it.
Yeah, structurally it is a little weird that it just has that sort of one verse in the middle, you know,
Yeah.
and then the vocals never really come back. Um, I don't know. There's something about the cadence in the rapping too that doesn't feel like it quite has that like forward housey propulsion to me that the rest of the track does. Um,
Let's kill the news, yeah, I'm here for good. Let's kill the booze, yeah, I'm here for good. Spirit on my body.
in that sort of cadence of the da 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 da. Like it really has this. It feels like it kind of goes and then it stops and then goes and kind of stops and goes and kind of stops. I wonder, like,
Came with a chick and I left for ladies. Caught them on too because I'm scared of rabies. Yeah.
see, it doesn't bother me there, like when the drums drop out, right? Because it feels like kind of a break. But then when
Price that high, should have been a pilot. Can I bring my girls the way Vince is private? Fine. So we moved to Wyatt. Coming back later because
it doesn't feel like it's propelling the track in the same way that the drums are trying to me.
Okay.
But I wonder, like, since you have this one verse, but you've made this kind of longer song, like my impulse would be, if this was my track that I was trying to, like, you know, my impulse would be to go through these vocals and find something that I like think of as a hook and make like kind of more of a repeated sample out of it, you know?
Oh,
Like
okay.
like a little bit houseier so that we like hear the same word, like, you know, the same phrase of words like over and over again, kind of in a loop. Um, and treat that like as kind of a hook, like a memorable hook, and then find a way to hear like more of the verse, maybe not the whole thing, but maybe like some of it in a dropout, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Something like that. Like try to find a way to work with that a little bit more. I also I mean, that bass sounds pretty good. It's like actually like those kinds of like really round bass lines with a lot of movement in them, but not a lot in the like upper harmonics. Like sometimes those fight a kick drum in a way that becomes kind of muddy. But I'm kind of liking the way it sounds here. It's a tricky thing to do, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it is kind of working. The drum elements that aren't quite working for me, all of your hi-hat elements, like your hi-hat and your shaker and all of your like sort of higher tickier percussion bits that are driving it are so bright and so present and so close and so dry, and everything else is kind of like spacey and dark and deep. It's not that any of these sounds are bad or like the elements are bad, but it kind of feels like they're in two different tracks to me,
Okay.
right? And like that clap is kind of like cool and has like that it's like kind of dark, and there's that reversed clap occasionally, and it's kind of reverby and it delays out and stuff. I just feel like the hi-hat is like cutting through a little too much, maybe just that it's too loud, but it feels like a little bit like too bright to me.
Too piercing.
Yeah, and just like a little bit in a different world, and I think that might help the like the push of the whole thing too. If it was a little bit darker, maybe it had some sort of like delay movement or like filter movement on it or something like that.
Okay.
Um,
Could it be an instrument thing too? Or would it just be like a different hi-hat sample or like a different just kind of instrument in general? Or that's
yeah,
would
totally,
be-
totally. I love, I love the like spaciness and the darkness of it, and I love how wide and open those pads are. And I would like, maybe it's just, I mean, it's for sure my own taste in like house music and dance music, but I would want to hear like more like distant reverbed out sounds like clanging around, like you're in a big warehouse and like someone's unloading a truck like 3 blocks away, and you hear these like clangs and these like reverbed out noises,
Cool.
from around. Like I love house tracks that feel that way,
That's cool. Yeah. So like industrial sounds almost.
Almost,
there'll be
yeah,
a,
but like
way in the
from a
back or-
really far away, like you don't quite know what they are, and like they're on beat, but they're not like so repetitive that they're like part of the beat structure, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like the track like feels to me like it's leaning that direction, but not quite going there. Like definitely keep like your kick drum and stuff like really like tight and punchy, but it feels like there's a lot of like open space to explore, like, you know, reverbed out sounds. And that way, like different elements like shakers and even the voice and stuff can feel like they're like approach from a distance and get really close and then go away again, right? Like you're sort of pulling sounds out of the distance in and out.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Nice work. Nice work. Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that was maybe it for that one probably. So,
Cool. Let's check out Missing You.
yeah.
Had a dream about you last night. You stood in my kitchen and apologized, but then I
nice.
Yeah, it was more of like a alternative-y thing that I did with my friend Annie.
Okay.
She was the one who was singing. And I feel like I've been going back and forth with drums on this track, and I can't figure out like the exact placement for them and what kind of drums I should be using in general. Because the ones that that are in this is one of my friends just playing live drums, and I just kind of chopped it up and moved it around the track. And I mix it with a couple of just sampled drums that I have, and I can't really figure out like what an appropriate, I guess, way to do that is.
I would listen to it. I would start listening to some dub records. It sounds like it really wants to be like a dub track. Like I want to hear the drums a lot louder in this, even though they're played really softly. Like they're just not cutting through most of it. And I want to hear like a really low, like dubby sub bass in here. It feels like it's like operating in that language, but it like a mix like this like sounds like you're not confident in the drums because they're so quiet,
Yeah.
like that's always the like if you just it's like either change out the sound or just make it loud and live with it. But if you make them so quiet like this, then it's like then I don't really know. Like there's nothing really driving the track,
Yeah.
Her vocal kind of just overwhelms everything, especially like in the second half of it. I think those drums sound cool, and I like the idea, for the track. And it might be like
You don't miss me anyway. I cried on your sweat.
I might try like I mean, like my what I would do is lean really heavily into like it feeling like a dub track, and like drum sounds like occasionally go through like a bunch of different kinds of delays and reverbs and things. So the snare drum like sometimes has a long reverb on it, sometimes doesn't, sometimes has like a triplet delay on it. And I would like probably program a new bass part that had a lot of movement in it.
Okay.
That like plays around the kick drum, so it's less like steady, like it's less on all the time, but it's like sort of shorter notes that kind of play off the kick drum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then that might be part of the like a mix thing too, because this is one of the first mixes I had tried on, just like fully going through the console school, that Neve, the 5088,
cool.
and going through that, and then the Portico outboard gear, like those compressors, and I did have a bass in there, but it kept like it was so loud as I was putting it through like the Porticos. I ended up turning it way down, and I think it just like completely like canceled it almost. I could show you the live session for it actually, I think, because
sure.
like the pre kind of
do you want me to I'll stop sharing my screen here and then you can
share
yours.
This thing is blocking it. Oh, there we go.
Cool.
Okay, I think that should work.
I heard some hiss pop on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As if there's like a tape hiss plugin in there somewhere that's generating a little bit of hiss.
Oh, there might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Had a
like that. I guess just this bass line
Yeah.
that's kind of going through the track.
Yeah, I feel like once the drums come in, feels like you want a bass line that's like playing almost a little counterpoint to that kick drum, you know? That
Yeah.
like really long, sustained sort of tones. Are fine in that intro, and I like that sort of spaciness of that intro, you know. But then once those drums comes in, I feel like I want the whole thing to just groove a little more, which it sounds like to me the drums are doing. It's just hard to hear. You want to solo the drums real quick? Like,
Yeah.
go through the drum elements that you have. Yeah, I mean, what's wrong with those? Those sound great. I feel like maybe that huge reverb is not doing them any favors. I would like that's exactly the kind of effect that I would like just have come on occasionally just on the snare or something. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that it's like sort of tight and close drums, and then occasionally the snare goes, you know, you know what I mean? Like just
Okay.
occasional little like delays and reverbs and effects like on just a couple of drums here and there, you know? But I like the
Yeah.
patterns, I like the programming of it, and I like the playing, you know?
And then so if the reverb goes down a lot, and then probably just turn it up because I think it's super low.
Yeah.
Like,
Miss me, and you're not mine.
okay. Yeah, that does sound better.
It's already better, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be. Yeah, I like the idea of the having a snare really reverbery every once in a while. That would be cool too.
Yeah, that's a trick I overuse myself.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I'm never like, every time I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all right, I'm gonna put a reverb on every third snare or something. I never regret that decision. It's always the right move, but
That's cool.
does feel like a cheat.
Um, all right. I think there was one more. So I think I've been also struggling with the like idea for this project too, because I'm trying to make an album with my friend Annie, and I feel like we have a bunch of different songs that we've made, and some of them are like a little bit more complete, like this, like not exactly done, but and then some of them are just like a minute or two of like us kind of figuring out what we want to do, and it's just been hard to find like a central like I don't know meeting point or vision for because we both listen to the same music like for the most part, and kind of our taste for making music is similar. I just like how do you decide kind of which way you want to take a project, I guess.
Oh man, I don't know. I have so many failed projects exactly in that category of like, oh, I've been hanging out with such and such friend and we made a bunch of songs together and we like the way it's going and then we just never finish it for whatever reason. Like I have so many folders of that kind of stuff kicking around,
Yeah.
you know? I don't think that really ever goes away,
Yeah.
right? And that's just part of the process of like making songs. Um, I find it easier to like I find it really easy to make new things from nothing really quickly, and I find it really easy to edit existing things, but I find it really difficult to do both at the same time, right? To edit as I'm making something new. Like that feels really paralyzing if you're like really hung up on whatever the new thing you're making like being right or being in the right direction. It's like no, just like follow instincts and make the thing that feels right to make in that moment, and then the next day or a couple days later, go back and decide if it's the right direction or if you need to sort of change things up or like micro, tweak it.
Yeah. Does
Um,
that change over like time for you too? Because I feel like some of this stuff, like I've known her since like high school, and
Yeah.
some of these tracks aren't from high school, but it's just like it's been a couple of years like that I've had these tracks that we've like kind of continuously come back to and been like, we still like this, like we want to involve it in a project somehow, but we can't exactly figure out how to fit it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that changes over time, and then and eventually you like, I like find a place for something that I made 5 years ago that kind of forgot about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then there's stuff that you never pick up again.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like the record that we released as clipping last year.
Oh yeah, that record was awesome, by the way.
There's a song that's like 5 years old on that, or 5 or 6 years old on that.
Oh really?
That we had made for another project and decided it wasn't quite right for that project. I said, well, we'll put it on the next one, and then it took like 6 years to make that record.
Yeah.
So that
Is
happens.
that hard to do? Like, do you have to almost like modernize it, kind of, just because I feel like music changes?
We didn't change a thing.
That's cool.
We didn't re-record the vocals. We didn't do anything. We had a mix of it from like 5 years ago. We just left it the same. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's dope.
No, we didn't. Yeah.
And for like inspiration purposes, like I feel like my because I live in, I go to school obviously out there, but I live in Chicago. That's where I am right now.
Okay. Yeah.
And just like a suburb of Chicago, and I feel like my inspiration changes like almost back in, like when I move back and forth between places. Like it's just a totally different, like out here I'm in like cornfields and that kind of stuff, and I feel like my inspiration is so much different than when I'm in a like San Francisco in a city. And
Yeah.
I don't know, is it,
I would embrace that. Like,
yeah,
make the thing that's appropriate for where you are and how you feel. If you're able to, if you don't have a very specific project that you need to be working on. That's a real luxury and a privilege to just to be able to make whatever you want inspired by your surroundings.
yeah, definitely.
Like take advantage of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like I feel like when I'm out here I'm making more types of like these kind of tracks than when I'm out in San Francisco. I'm making more like electronic and house style tracks, and like I want to fit them, like I almost want to put these last two songs in the same project together, but I don't know if that would be like completely out of character for like a album like that, because that's why I was looking to change these drums too. But now that I'm thinking about it, like that's just like those are two just completely different styles of songs. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't particularly care about things like genre, and I like albums that that move around. So I think you're the only one that can answer that, and especially if you aren't like beholden to like a label or a producer or somebody, like if you're just self-releasing your own stuff, like just do what feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on that, and I definitely wouldn't don't you're not in a position to take a track that feels like it wants to be one thing and like bend it and break it to be another thing so that it will fit with another track to be on an album. Like you don't care about that. You're not like delivering to a label on a deadline, right? Are you? I mean,
No.
like, talking about self-releasing this, right? So
Yeah.
make the track what it wants to be, and also like a lot of times it's better to let something go and start something new. If something's not quite working, like you can only beat your head against it so long before it's better to just like let it go and start a new thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I can pull up another one too they had.
Cool.
this was along like the same lines of the that project with my friend Annie that was trying to. This was more like I recorded her. Oh, that's static again. This one was
that isotope plugin.
Oh, this is the Waves one. Is this?
Oh, really?
One? Oh no, that's Waves 2. Where was it? Where's it even coming from?
From that nature track.
What was that? Oh yeah, the Waves.
Oh, that's
the
super
Waves
funny.
one.
I didn't know they made a.
This one's a little
a
loud.
thing. It's fine. You can leave. We were before you jumped on. We were just talking about how like how there are plugins that make vinyl crackle now, and it's like a thing that people want in their tracks.
Yeah.
We do that all the time.
And then so this is another. So right now this is kind of just like vocals and guitar, and I was trying to think of what else I could possibly need in the track, and maybe re-recording the guitar. I couldn't really decide, but just play it.
Cool. I'll mute while you're.
The sun was in my eyes today when someone passed me by. His hair looked like yours did last fall. He was in the kind of car you drive. We slept in Chicago on your best friend's hardwood floor. I used to like to be so far, so long, but I don't really like that anymore. And I don't know where I am, and I don't recall your name. I just want anything new. Life is just a series of seeing other people in the hopes that I'll get over you. Life moves along, it can feel so fast, but I wish it would just hurry up. 'Cause I don't feel like spending more time wondering if I'll ever maybe one day be enough. I don't know where my heart is meant to be. All I know is that it's not here. I wish you wouldn't act like you don't know what that means, but I'll close my eyes and hope you'll disappear. And I don't know where I am, and I don't recall their names. I just wanted anything new. Living is a series of seeing other people in the hopes that I'll get over you. Jesus Christ, they can seem so sad, 'cause I can't live outside of my head. And my best friend's ex-boyfriends have died. I didn't give a shit about them till they were dead. He said I'm something special or something new at least. I don't care, I'm just passing through. A few more years with different names and different faces, and I'll find myself back home with you. I don't know where I am, I don't recall their names. I just wanted anything new. Living is a series of seeing other people in the hopes that I'll get over you.
Cool.
Yeah, those I think I wanted to re-record the guitar with an amp rather than just an acoustic guitar, and maybe have a different kind of reverb effect.
Like with an electric.
Yeah. I couldn't tell what else it would need though, because it's kind of a long song, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like at 5 minutes. It's kind of just the same thing for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you could make a shorter edit of it for sure. There's something really nice about the lo-fi-ness of it and the like sort of intimacy of it that you might lose with an electric guitar instead of the acoustic. Is that there's like a ground hum in it? Is that added in the same way that the vinyl is added, or is that in one of the tracks?
I'm pretty sure that's in. Let's see. Yeah, that's in the track.
The guitar. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
there's something kind of nice and lo-fi and like raw about that, you know,
Yeah,
which I think you've kind of gleaned onto by adding that vinyl crackle. Like there is something nice about it being like kind of hissy and imperfect and
yeah. I did it in like my noisy basement with a like 57 or something like that, and
yeah,
just
yeah.
mic the guitar. But
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
but yeah,
I
do you
think
think
I,
like
I think her vocals are too loud pretty much consistently, and definitely the harmonies and the doubles when those come in, every like the vocal gets so loud, you know. When you're doing doubles like that, um, remember that like every time you add like another copy of the same sound, right? You're 60 dB louder, right? You get louder.
okay,
So you kind
yeah,
of have to go through and do like vocal rides to make sure that your vocals sit at a kind of a more consistent level and they don't overpower everything. Like definitely some of those harmonies and doubles and things like feel like they're really overpowering, like taking over the track.
okay.
Um, um,
Does that match that the like every once in a while will be like a it's not by her because it was just like different takes, but when I put it together, it's like some of the timings of the syllables are a little bit off, I guess. I mean, I think that's like kind of a stylistic thing almost, but I don't know if that sounds like out of place. I guess like even here when she's
Recall their names. I just wanted anything new.
it's like she'll say like a word in the
the takes are so different, that doesn't bother me. I mean, that is really like an aesthetic choice, and that's I think like sometimes that's like too fine a brush for me to give a shit about, like people editing pop vocals always care so much about like, oh, all of the the syllables on these words need to line up, and it really depends on what you're going for in the track like how much I care about that stuff, and I usually care less than I think other people do about making sure everything's perfect. Um, um,
Yeah, because
yeah.
she was like, oh, we need to re-record that. Like, my time is so bad on the harmonies and stuff like that. I'm like, I think it sounds kind of cool, like having the.
Like that's so off that it sounds cool, right? It sounds like a choice. It's like they start to bug me when things are like almost on, but they just feel unintentional and sloppy. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like this. It's the sort of thing like where like it's not a problem until it is, you know.
Yeah.
Um, like I definitely don't do a pass where I just go like line up all of the vocal overdubs like de facto, you know.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it and decide, you know, and I'll try to do them by ear. I kind of feel the same way about tuning, you know, like I try to just like tune the notes I notice and leave everything else.
Yeah.
Unless I want it, the whole thing to be auto-tuned in a really particular way, you know.
I think, yeah, for this I was using that waves tune that they have.
I've never used that.
And I couldn't tell, does it sound subtle? Like, I think I was just like, I've been listening to it so much that I can't really tell that if it's like obvious that it's in there. Cause I mean, she sings like well in tune to begin with, but I don't know if that's part of the like aesthetic thing of the lo-fi too, that you just kind of leave that off of it, or.
I would leave it off until you really need it. Honestly, like, or until it becomes the aesthetic. It's hard for me to tell over Zoom, you know, because a lot of the artifacts that like a tuner like that will put on a vocal track are very similar to like streaming artifacts, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little hard for me to tell over Zoom, but it didn't sound bad to me.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's all I needed for that track. Just keep working on that.
Right yeah, it's nice stuff.
Thanks. I can show you one more too. It's
cool.
Kind of, I guess, a lot different than these last two, but it's more of like on the lines of a house track too.
Nice.
Let's see. The vocals for this one are probably going to get redone at some point, but it's just kind of where it's at right now.
Cool.
Hardwired human synthetical. Your style and smile so original. I feel my heart pumping up. Electrical, electrical. If you're not ready to go, I'll show you something that you didn't know. This where romance getting rid of. It's getting rid of. Disregard pleasure.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah. So for that one too, I'm wondering if there's too much like going on kind of at once in some places on that, because I recorded a bunch of just like synths throughout this whole thing, and I kind of just threw them all in there, and now that I'm just like listening to it, I feel like it's maybe too much at some
This
point.
feels like a sampler of a lot of different ideas that it doesn't really commit to.
Okay.
To me, like it feels a little aimless. It feels like a lot of like sort of rough drafts strung together that
Yeah.
like around bar like 39 or 40, I think, is when it really feels like suddenly the track knows what it's doing.
Okay.
And like everything before that feels like a sort of meandering journey to get to like a place where then kind of it locks in, and then it locks in for a little bit, and then it kind of like loses steam again. There's something in the vocal around there, like 39 or 40, that like suddenly feels like a hook and suddenly feels like I know what the track is, you know?
Okay.
Um, but I also, you want to play that section again? Like play it from like
Sure.
bar 37 or something?
Yeah. Oh, the zoom thing is like exactly blocking the measure numbers.
Oh yeah, I bet it is.
It's like right
That's
there.
right around there. That looks good. Yeah.
Okay.
I gave you all and you took it all. Promise me like you did before. I know the time is up. Symmetrical. If you're not ready to go.
And then around there, I start to lose track of it. But that little vocal line, that I know what you did before, that feels like a hook worth holding on to me.
Okay.
Although I would say, like, in this whole section that you were just playing that continues, those like piano chords that are just like hitting at the start of every measure feel like they're kind of bogging the track down a little bit. They feel like they're like really like kind of sonorous and like they're really like monotonous and predictable in a way.
Okay.
And I like the chords, but I would want some other way of communicating that chord movement. Like even just like putting them on an offbeat and adding some delay, or like some sort of like moving synth that kind of moves through the chords, or like some way that's not just so like block chords on the one every time, you know?
Yeah.
Like I think there's something salvageable in here as like a track, but like structurally right now I like don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And like there's like a 303 acid line that pops up for like a second and then goes away and then never comes back, and then like I don't know what that is, and like there's a lot of like ideas being thrown against a board, and it feels like now is the time, now it's the time to be like really ruthless and say like that works, none of the rest of the stuff works, well let's make that into the thing, you know?
Just like expand on that idea and the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like pick what that is for you and work on that. Or like it might be that you've made 3 tracks here, right? Because there are 3 different ideas that you really like, you know, but they don't necessarily work in the same track. And that'll happen every now and then to me too, right? That I'm like working on something and it'll make a sound. I'm like, oh, holy shit, I really like that, but it's not part of this song, so I'm going to save it someplace else and work on it later, you know?
Yeah.
It's not,
Cool.
it's, it's always worth hanging on to that stuff. Like, don't throw it away.
Like do a save copy as.
Yeah, exactly. You're on a computer, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Nothing is ever deleted. You have everything forever. So, like,
True.
nothing's
cool.
nothing's precious, but everything's also always there. So.
Yeah. I guess this ties into the song too. It's a question. Just like now that I'm not at school and have access to like all the like equipment and synths and stuff out there, like if I'm looking to get just my own like a substantial like synth just soon, I guess, like what would you recommend for? 'Cause I mean, obviously you have a lot of synths that are pretty awesome.
I do have a lot of stuff, and it's honestly like you don't need this stuff to make good music, obviously, right? Like if you have a computer, you're there. You have all the stuff you actually need to make a record. So like really what you're getting when you're getting a synth is you're getting inspiration and you're getting an interface. And you're getting, for me, it's like also like speed of making a really good sound that I like, because the interface means that I like just arrive at a certain place. Like I can make sounds on the computer that sound as good as like sounds on the modular. I just like stuff of a certain quality, like you get a better sound faster because just the components make good sounds, right? There's a lot more bad sounds in a computer than there are bad sounds in this setup,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
if that makes
definitely.
sense.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm actually like really doing anything you can't do in a computer on this stuff. So, you know, it depends on your budget. There's so much stuff out there right now, and all of it's pretty cool. You know, not all of it, but like a lot of it is really, really cool. A lot of really great synths happening. You know, all the stuff that like Korg and Novation are making right now. Really, really, they get it. It's really good. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
How about? Oh, Torrent said buy used.
yeah.
Yeah, on Reverb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some cool stuff on there. Like Behringer and Moog and like what's like a? I mean, I guess if my price range is not under 1,000 for, it's under 1,000, so it's like a.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you want too. You know, if it's like if you're getting like a first synth, then you want something that's like kind of versatile. You know, um, you but you also probably want something that's not like really easy to do inside of a computer. You know, so you probably don't want something. You don't want to spend the extra money for something like really polyphonic because you can make polyphonic like sort of analog-y sounding synths inside a computer. You might be more fun to get something with a really cool unusual interface, like something like modular or semi-modular, you know, because that's going to be more unlike what you already have, you know.
Yeah.
Those new Behringer clones, I don't know, man. There's a lot of like a lot of opinions about those things and that company in general and its ethics. I have not used or heard any of those Behringer clones. You know, part of me loves that they're kind of like democratizing synths and like removing the sort of monetary gatekeeping from analog synths, right? That you no longer have to have like a ton of money to get something that looks and feels and sounds like a Moog. But on the other hand, like I also like respect intellectual property, and the kind of like thieving they're doing is like profoundly unethical. But then on the other hand, right, is there any ethical consumption under capitalism at all, right? Like you know,
True.
complicated, like it's a complicated like realm. And I am fortunate enough to have enough of a studio that I don't really need to consider those new Behringer clones right now. They're not like super appealing to me.
Yeah.
Or like they don't like they're not making anything yet that I feel like would like fill a need in my studio. So I haven't really had to think about that.
Yeah.
I love their like X32 console.
X32.
The mixer that they make, the like Midas mixer thing.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's all we're almost time. Yeah.
How are we? Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Of course, really nice work. It's really nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to meet you
Great
too.
stuff.
Awesome. Stop my screen share. Alrighty. Thanks again. See you later.
Mr. Poopy Butthole. You know who that is?
Jonathan, thank you
Yes.
so much
Oh, thank
for
you.
sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today. We're honored to host you here, and we continue to be super impressed with all of your wealth of experience. And I have to say, bringing people around to lecture to the TAC students, it's very easy to find people who can show them how to do something. Like I could find 100 people that can demonstrate X, Y, or Z, but to bring someone around who has great taste and a deep kind of intellectualism and poignancy and poetry to their work I think you've really demonstrated to these students how you can earn a living and be a professional in your field while maintaining your own personal artistic identity, which is a really, really, not many people do that and keep doing that long in their career. So, thank you so much for being a role model for all of us.
Thanks. You're gonna make me cry. That's so nice.
Well, I only speak the truth. Wait,
what are you now?
would you cry if I turn into a peach?